Its provocation of Russia with new long-range weapons to try to be attacked inside of Russia. That is the move. And we heard Jens Stoltenberg last week giving Zelensky the go-ahead, the green light. You know what? Use these long-range weapons to attack inside Russia. How is that going to go? And you'd have to be a fool to think that Putin is just sort of going to sit back and let that unfold on his watch as you attack his sovereign territory. Earlier today, Putin revealed that the new Sarmat intercontinental nuclear missiles have entered service with the Russian army. And over the past few hours, Russia has mobilized a portion of their nuclear missiles onto the streets. It's always interesting when you see nuclear missiles rolling down the street. Colonel Douglas Macgregor posted this on X a few hours ago. Moscow's message: do not escalate and attack Russia. Moscow controls the escalatory ladder, not Washington. We hold a weak hand and are bluffing. In poker, we call it a dead man's hand. Moscow holds a strong hand, and it's not bluffing. We thought we'd ask the Colonel himself to go in more detail about this, and Colonel Macgregor joins us now. Nice to see you, Colonel. Welcome.
Good to see you too, Clayton.
Well, you say Russia is not bluffing, and I think a lot of people in the West, it seems like they continue to play this game. Like, how much can we needle him? How much can we surround Russia before it's like a caged bear?
No, I think that's right. And you would think at this point they would have figured out after almost 3 years. It's a big mistake to underestimate the Russians. They're actually quite serious about defending their country, which is what they demonstrated when they went into eastern Ukraine. But I think the important thing to keep in mind with these nuclear missiles is as following. If you try to enter Russian sovereign territory on the ground with any European or American military formations, if you strike us on the ground, anything that is significant, we have the capability to annihilate you, and we will use it. And we will start at the tactical level with tactical nuclear weapons, and we'll work our way up as needed. They're not about to back down and leave Ukraine under any circumstances, and they're certainly not interested in a war. If they were, we'd have been at war with Russia a long time ago. That's obvious. But they're not going to sit there and pretend that they somehow or another are going to be intimidated by us. And we have nothing with which to challenge them. Our ground forces are in ruins. I'm sure you've seen the news with Macron, who stood up and turned himself into the proverbial turd in the punch bowl by suggesting that Europeans should be prepared to march into eastern Ukraine.
Yeah, Napoleon Bonaparte Macron.
Yeah, except Napoleon actually had a real army. You know, Macron has there are 72,000 troops in the British army. The French army is a little larger, but these are boutique forces. They're all designed to essentially oppress people that can't defend themselves in North Africa or the Middle East or Africa itself. I mean, they don't have forces that are designed to fight anybody who can fight back.
What do you make of the back and forth then with Macron saying we're not taking this off the table to put ground forces in Ukraine on the part of the French government? Olaf Scholz then having to come out and deliver a video message where he says, under no circumstances, as I, Chancellor of Germany, would put forces into Ukraine. Maybe it is, by the way, I was kind of reading into that. I was really studying his language there because I think you speak German, you understand. The way what he was saying specifically is I, as Chancellor, would not put ground forces into Ukraine of Germany. But he doesn't have the power to do that. The Bundestag does. So he wouldn't be the one that would put ground forces in there anyway. Anyway, I found that interesting, this back and forth between he and Macron. What did you make of that?
Well, strictly speaking, Scholz fancies himself a Bismarckian figure. And the German chancellor, certainly before World War I, was an enormously powerful figure. And he had great authority to do almost anything he wanted given to him by the emperor. So I think there's a certain amount of self-delusion involved with that. But he knows the Germans have no interest in this. Nobody in Europe has an interest in going to war in Ukraine. All of this is a proxy effort. What can we do to weaken Russia? You would think by now the fools would recognize that all they've done is strengthen Russia. Russia is stronger militarily now than it's been since the 1980s. Now they're showing you the latest tactical nuclear weapons, mobile nuclear missiles that can essentially hit any target they need to in Europe. They could vaporize airfields, ports, cities as needed. The other thing is we don't have any air defense. In other words, we talk about air and missile defense, but we really don't have much.
In the United States?
Well, both in the United States and in Europe. We've always depended on our air forces, and the underlying assumption has been that our air forces can penetrate anything and drop bombs with impunity and launch missiles with impunity. That's not really true anymore. The Russians are heavily invested in integrated air defenses, integrated air and missile defenses. They're quite prepared to deal with us if we rely exclusively on the Air Force. And to be blunt, that's all we've got right now.
Ooh, terrifying to think about. We talk about Star Wars of the 1980s. We talk about the Iron Dome in Israel, right? But the United States is sort of a sitting duck here. We can't even handle quote unquote Chinese spy balloons flying over Montana, for crying out loud. We panicked when Balloon Boy was up a number of years ago. Remember that famous story? Yeah. So it's unbelievable to me. I think a lot of people sort of sitting back going about their day-to-day business here, but NATO just keeps going, keeps expanding. Jens Stoltenberg last week telling Zelensky, long-range weapons, we're giving you the green light to attack inside of Russia. NATO membership for Sweden. This is moving right up to their back door. I mean, something has to give here. I mean, we're at this like boiling point moment here, and I don't know what do you think is going to give?
NATO is never so weak as when it appears to be strong. The more talk you hear about unity of effort and larger, more powerful NATO capabilities, the less seriously you should take any of these comments. You've got 32 states today constituting the so-called NATO alliance, getting agreement on much of anything, including, which door do we use in the conference room to get to the bathroom is impossible. There's no unity of thinking or effort at all. The whole sham alliance is designed to create avenues of approach for Europeans to us. It's another channel of communication to try and acquire U.S. favor and support and backing. These are all small countries today. They're much like the Greek city-states in the age of the Roman Empire. We're a sort of declining Rome at this point. I hope Americans will figure that out and act against it, but we're a declining Rome. The European states are like the little Greek city-states that were entirely dependent upon Roman military power to save them from the Macedonians. This whole business is a sham. NATO is probably not going to survive. I wouldn't pay any attention to any of it. I think Schultz knows that if he takes...
Président, en état de siège, sifflé au salon de l'agriculture, qui croit pouvoir trouver le salut politique dans des postures guerrières qui ont stupéfié les Français. La France en est d'ailleurs sortie totalement isolée. L'ensemble des capitales, de Berlin à Washington, de Madrid à Stockholm, ont rejeté fermement cette annonce aussi fracassante que déraisonnable.
Macron, restitution. Nous allons écouter un jeune homme. Macron, restitution.
Allez hop, ça dégage. Et on entend un peu de joie. Et voilà.
La advertencia final. Los detalles. En su discurso anual ante la Duma Estatal y el Consejo de la Federación de su país, Vladimir Putin lanzó la última advertencia a los miembros de la OTAN. Los oponentes de Rusia deben recordar que nosotros tenemos armas capaces de alcanzar objetivos en su territorio, indicó el presidente, citado por medios rusos. El discurso anual ante la Duma y el Consejo de la Federación, las dos cámaras que forman la Asamblea Federal, Parlamento ruso, ha planteado que las amenazas de la OTAN son desproporcionadas y acercan a un escenario de catástrofe global. Todo esto amenaza con desatar un conflicto con armas nucleares y por tanto la destrucción de la civilización, aseveró así el jefe del Kremlin. El expansionismo de la OTAN ha sido un elemento capital de esta confrontación, por supuesto, colocando en peligro la seguridad y soberanía de Rusia. El discurso de Putin se antojaba lapidario luego de las declaraciones del presidente de Francia, Emmanuel Macron, durante una conferencia en solidaridad con Ucrania organizada con los demás socios de la Unión Europea. El envío de tropas occidentales a Ucrania no debe ser descartado, así aseveró Macron. Recordamos la suerte que corrieron aquellos que alguna vez enviaron sus contingentes a nuestro territorio, precisó Putin en respuesta directa a Macron. Pero las consecuencias para los intervencionistas serán ahora mucho más trágicas, añadió el presidente ruso. Ahora, sin ningún pudor, dicen que Rusia supuestamente tiene la intención de atacar a Europa, aseguró Putin. En efecto, Macron indicó que la victoria de Moscú en la guerra de Ucrania sería una grave amenaza a la seguridad y estabilidad europea. Vosotros y yo sabemos que dicen tonterías, puntualizó. La postura de Macron generó polémica no solo en Moscú, sino en toda Europa. Los liderazgos de Alemania, Polonia e Italia se deslindaron de la aseveración de Macron, indicando que no será necesaria la presencia directa de tropas de la OTAN en Ucrania. Bien conocen que sería una afrenta intolerable para Moscú. Ante una amenaza a la integridad territorial de nuestro país, utilizaremos todos los medios a nuestro alcance, incluidos los nucleares, así agregó el jefe de Estado ruso. A las puertas de un proceso electoral presidencial decisivo, teniendo un panorama favorable en Ucrania a Moscú, Occidente sube la temperatura de la confrontación. El canciller de Alemania, Olaf Scholz, negó cualquier consenso en cuanto a la postura de Macron. Una cosa está clara, no habrá tropas terrestres de los estados europeos ni de la OTAN, aseveró el mandamás teutón, según declaración recogida por la BBC. Un comunicado.
Estados Unidos tiembla de miedo. El gobierno brasileño acaba de calificar de intolerante el ataque por parte de Israel a los civiles palestinos que se agolpaban alrededor de camiones en busca de comida. En ese momento Israel cargó duramente contra los ciudadanos, empezó a disparar y más de 100 perdieron la vida. Las declaraciones de Benjamín Netanyahu sobre el incidente solo demuestran, una vez más, la calidad de mandatario que es. Y precisamente Brasil salió a dar la cara y dijo que esta situación era intolerable, que va mucho más allá de la necesaria investigación de las responsabilidades por los muertos y heridos, sino que ya el descarado genocidio que está realizando Israel contra Palestina es inaceptable. Israel ha logrado dividir al grupo de los 20. Este grupo que se acaba de reunir en Brasil para acordar los temas más importantes a nivel internacional, principalmente en materia económica, la economía de la mayoría de los países está, digamos, un poco complicada. Pero aún así tienen la intención muchos países de trabajar juntos. Y la idea era esa, que durante esta reunión del grupo de los 20 se mostraran como un frente unido para luchar contra todos los problemas económicos del mundo. Pero esta reunión, con los ministros de economía del grupo de los 20, el grupo de las 20 mayores economías del mundo, terminó en Sao Paulo sin un comunicado conjunto. ¿Por qué? Por Israel. Debido a las diferencias geopolíticas, no se llegó a un consenso. Debido a que Estados Unidos, por supuesto, apoya a Israel y no permitieron exigir la creación de 2 estados, una Palestina y un Israel,